Alright, so we got a 2019 or 2018 Jeep Wrangler JLU. This one is used for Go Rhino and Wheel Pros as a show vehicle that travels around, and it came in with a broken Fabtech drag link. So we got it fixed up and replaced with some parts, but I figured I would go through it and kind of give you a walk around what's on it. So first off, we're gonna start with the front. It's a bumper. It is a Go Rhino bumper. They kind of use a different style when it comes to their high clearance. This one obviously fits the Xeon Platinum winch, so that's something not many do. But the winch sits on top of it. High clearance when it goes to the crash bar, that's still there. And instead of hanging down low like most bumpers do, it sits up higher in order to fit everything and still give a high clearance. And this one specifically can fit a 20-inch light bar behind this grille if you so choose. Has Go Rhino front and rear flares. These are super high clearance flares, as you can see, with inner fender liners. Does have ways for the heat to dissipate. Go Rhino rockers, which are bolt-on. Same concept, rear flares, rear inner liner. One reason I like these flares is because it's flush. There's no angles going into all of these bends, which a lot of those other aftermarket ones you'll see have. Very clean looking. And then their back bumper has sensor holes if your vehicle has sensors. Has a step to go on there if you open it up and need to step into the Jeep. Otherwise, it's protection for your actual spare tire. Has lights you can put into the back. A license plate mount, which goes here if you so choose to do that. Otherwise, you can bolt it to your spare tire. Same concept as other people do. Speaking of spare tire, has a Smittybilt tire carrier. These are bolt-on, and for the most part, most of these brands are the same when it comes to the Smittybilt, TerraFlex, CADFab, Motobilt, etc. They all use the same style. You know, you're gonna have your replacement that goes and bolts on there, and then it runs and replaces the hinges and actually bolts inside the cab. So you have to pull apart the entire interior in the back to bolt these on. The difference is going to come to the overall quality, the type of steel they use. Smittybilt, obviously on the lower price end, is going to just use a plastic bushing that goes through here, bolts that go on, and everything's cast. Whereas CADFab, Motobilt use a higher quality bushing and actually use 3/16 or 1/4 inch, depending on steel that is actually bent, and it's going to be stronger to withhold a stronger tire and actually not wear out as quickly. This Jeep does have 40-inch Mickey Thompson MTZs with 17-inch fuel wheels. I believe it's their 43 series. Now, as for the suspension, it has a Fabtech long arm, which is the first that I've seen of this one, but it definitely has some pros and cons. It looks like it's bolt-on, but recommends welding. Like the rear track bar bracket, for example, doesn't have any additional bracing. Now, the rear track bar bracket doesn't exactly need it, but it's always smart to when you're raising your pivot point that high. This one bolts on, and then they welded it to the factory. The Dirt Logic reservoir shocks, sway bar extensions, 1310 front and rear drive shafts, and their long arm bolts to the body mount in a couple points. Same front and rear. The front bolts to the body mounts, or sorry, the skid plate mounts, and then also has a new cross member that goes across with a new skid plate to make sure everything is protected. Front, when you have them connected like that, it braces them together and stronger. You can kind of see this is where their new lower control arm mount is. That's where the factory one is. Same concept for the front. Reservoir shocks, drive shaft. Now, what it came in for was broken steering. They use a collar style adjuster on their drag link, which means up here it threads into another piece that's threaded into a tube. So there's actually 3 pieces that connect together. And unfortunately, it was just cheaply made or installed wrong. Couldn't tell you, but I never liked that design. So we use RPM steering typically. And what it does is actually go into here, then uses jam nuts. And this is solid 2-inch aluminums, 2.5-ton steering ends. He had a flip drag link, so we did have to keep that because he has his raised track bar and they have to be in line with each other. So his other set used a specific rod end into his factory knuckle that was drilled out, but it's not a JL taper, it was a JK taper with a JL length, if you're familiar with this Mumbo Jumbo. So we had to get him a new knuckle, and we had some reed knuckles, which are actually cast steel as opposed to the cast aluminum that come on the factory. A lot of the JLs are having issues because of the aluminum knuckles. The diesels and the Mojaves come with steels, and Reed came out with their steel, so we got him set up with that. New tie rod and new stabilizer clamp to make sure everything is straight in line and where it needs to be. Baja design lights on the windshield. And then one thing that was kind of cool is custom seat covers. Looks like they were made by Roadwire, but it actually has a suede with diamond stitching, black leather, black rhino stitched in. And here's the even cooler part. The back's full of beer. Like I said, it's one of the Wheel Pros vehicles, so American racing beer, fuel off-road, just all in the rear. So if this thing gets rear-ended, it's gonna be a waterworks. But yeah, guys, if you have any questions on this build, feel free to comment them down below. I'll do my best to help out as best I can. All right, see you next video.